Hello and thank you for joining me. My name is Alan and I have a question. Are we prepping to live in the woods or where we actually live? Bug out bags, probably the most commonly searched for prepping subject, if you like, on YouTube. Many of us, it conjures up ideas of running off to the woods or the wilderness and surviving in that environment. And to be fair, that's not really relevant for the majority of us, is it? We live in a, urban or a suburban environment, and we've got no intentions of wanting to run off to the woods to bug out there. There are far better options, but this video isn't looking at those options. This video is all about taking some of the things that are, are now portrayed as being gospel. They're things that you've got to have, and myth busting them a little bit. Doesn't mean to say that I'm saying that these rules, if you like, are not true, but I want you to think about forging your own path, doing what you think is right for you, not only for your budget, but for your circumstances and for where you live. So we'll look at some of the common, and I don't really want to call them misconceptions, but we're going to look at some of the common things that these bug out bag videos have, break them down a little bit, and offer alternative suggestions, which, in my humble opinion, are probably more realistic. Let's crack on. So one of the main items that are in these bug out bags that you'll see are cutting tools. And we will all agree that a cutting tool should be in your Evac pack or your bug out bag, whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to refer to it as your bag from now on. And of course you've got some that are running around with a big tree beater. And is this relevant for me or you in our suburban or urban environment? Probably not. And you've got the others that go for an axe, or in this case a tomahawk, and again, same sort of thing. Not really required, is it? And you've got your posh bushcraft knives. Quite expensive, this one. It's probably 15 years old that I've had, and it was a couple of £100 then. It's not, if you're building a pack for an emergency that may never, let's face it, may never occur, then there aren't that many people that want to spend large amounts of money, especially in the current climate, on a knife to sit in their bag that may never get used. And legalities aside, despite what some people think, fixed blade knives in the UK are not prohibited. They're not illegal from the point of view that you can't own them. It's just the context that you're using it and where you're using it. But that perhaps is for another time. So a cheaper option is, for instance, the Mora Companion. Even now, this was about a tenner at the time, but even now, these are on Amazon for £15. And that isn't so bad, is it? You could get one of these for your Evac pack or your bag, and it can sit in the bottom of the bag. And then if you do need it, if the situation is that you do need it, you've got it with you. But you've only got £15 sitting in that bag for hopefully the next 20 years, 30 years, whatever it may be, and it won't get used. Your posh bushcraft knife, which costs a few £100, yeah, you don't want to leave that in a bag. You probably haven't, or you may not have the money to actually purchase something like this. So this is an option. I have a couple of these. Originally, for our Evac packs, this is something that I would put in the bottom. And I say legalities aside, if you're going camping, you're going to have a fixed blade knife with you. Or if you're doing something that requires that, you can have it with you. If I'm going shopping in the supermarket with it on my belt and waving it about, then clearly I'm going to be in trouble. if something happens that's bad enough for me to actually have to leave my house because I'm fearful for my life, you know, that house fire or whatever's happening, having one of these in my bag, as far as I'm concerned, and this is not legal advice, and I'm not a barrister, I'm not a solicitor, but it's in my bag and I'm leaving my house, to me, that's a good enough excuse to have it. It is a tool. That is all it is. You need to be comfortable with your own decisions. But anyway, before I go off on a tangent, so this is 15 quid. I actually saw something, and this is made by Evac, which is from Ukraine. And this was less than 40 quid. I can't remember the exact price. I think it was 30 something, but I will put the price up if you're interested. And it's classed as a bushcraft knife, but in fairness, everyone else has reviewed it. I've said it's more of a general camping knife than an actual bushcraft knife, because there are differences. And it is a full tang knife. It has a nice leather sheath with belt loop and also a dangler, if that floats your boat. And as I say, it is full tang, but it has got a very substantial blade. It's about 5 inches long as opposed to the 4 inch on the bushcraft knife, which is a woodlaw clone. And it is very sharp, and it's got that 90-degree spine, so it will shout, you know, you can use it with a ferro rod. But as a general camp knife, it's got a nice weight and it feels comfortable, so I'm quite happy. So perhaps if you don't want the more in your Evac pack or your bag, perhaps something like this. But either way, it doesn't really matter. I don't want to get caught up with brands. But having a cutting tool is still, in my opinion, important. But it hasn't got to be the machete, because that isn't. You know, something like this is more than adequate. If you don't feel comfortable with a fixed blade, then a pocket knife. It's a Swiss Army knife. It's got 2 blades on it. And no, you're not going to be battening wood, but then again, if you've got to leave your house, if you're in suburbia or an urban environment and you've got to leave your house, do you foresee yourself having to batten wood? Probably not. So something like a Swiss Army knife. And of course, the other tool that you'll see that gets mentioned in these videos is a saw. Be it a Laplander, a Silky, or a cheap alternative. I've tried the cheap alternatives, but again, this is going off on a tangent slightly, because this is more bushcraft than just having a bugout bag stroke Evac pack or your go bag, whatever. And I had a Wilco one and it cost me about 6 quid. I used it once and the handle broke. So you do get, as you do, you know, in a lot of things in life, what you pay for. But what I'm going to suggest is that if it's for your Evac pack or your bag for evacuating your home, a lot of the Swiss Army knives have a perfectly usable wood saw. Yes, one is going to cut down a branch much quicker than the other, but as I say, it's all to do with context. Do you expect to have to harvest wood if you've had to evacuate your property and you're in a suburban or urban environment? Probably not. The next item that seems to always pop up, it's pushed as you must have one of these. It's a stainless steel single-walled bottle. Again, I'm going to question that and say that if it's your bag to evacuate your property in an urban or a suburban environment, do you actually foresee the need to be boiling water in your bottle? The chances are you're going to have a water filter in your Evac pack, and as your redundancy, water purification tablets. So I don't think you need one of these. And to be fair, this is a Nalgene and it is horrendously heavy. You can see the weight, I can't remember what it is, but you'll see it in this picture. Or you can just go with a regular Nalgene bottle, which is about at least a third of the weight of the stainless steel one. Capacity holds the same amount, but you can't boil water in that. But as I said, is that a biggie? The chances are, in your bag, you're also going to have a mug. So for instance, this one's a titanium 750ml, and it nests with both, with either the stainless steel or the regular one. But as I said, don't need the stainless steel, it's too heavy. I don't anticipate having to boil water in it. But if it got that bad, I can boil water in this, can't I? And then I can let it cool down and pour it in there or whatever. But this can not only boil water to make it safer to drink, I can also cook in this if I had to, or to make a hot drink. I've now got something to drink out of. I can boil water in this, but trying to cook in it's going to be a major pain in the backside. And whilst I suppose I could make a cuppa in here, it's not really practical, is it? And plus, this is much more expensive than this one. So again, I personally do not think that you need a stainless steel single-walled water bottle in the pack or the bag that you've built as an Evac pack or a bugout bag. I don't think it's a requirement for the vast majority of people. Then some of the items, the other items that I'm going to, get you to think about. Sailcloth needle, one of Dave Canterbury's. And I, to be fair, in most of my survival kits, I have that type of needle. But if you carry a Swiss Army knife, do you actually need that big sailboat needle? See, it already has an awl on it, and there's a little hole in that awl. So you can, the sailcloth needle, you can repair kit or sew your clothes up. Well, if you're going to repair kit, you can use that. This will make holes through leather or heavy canvas or materials. You can poke it through, you can thread your cord, whatever you're going to use through the hole, and use that. So you don't necessarily need that sailcloth needle, do you? And the only time that I've actually had to repair my clothes was because a button popped off my trousers. And the sailcloth needle, the diameter of the needle, was too big to actually go through the hole in the button. So it was a bit of a pointless thing to have, really. So for clothing repairs, I'm going to say to you, don't go for a sailcloth needle. Go for a regular needle, pre-thread it, wrap it round it, and then you can repair your clothes. For equipment, if you have to repair equipment, use the awl on your Swiss Army knife. So that again suggests that that sailcloth needle really isn't required for the vast majority of us preppers that live in that urban or suburban environment. The Fresnel lens. I do carry them in my first aid kits, but the reason I carry it isn't so much for the option of solar fire, because let's face it, in the UK, we don't really, unless it's summer for the rest of the year, there isn't enough sunlight for it to actually be useful from a fire point of view. And if I was that desperate, personally, I'd use my glasses, because the magnification on parts of my glasses are far greater than the magnification in a little Fresnel lens. However, as I said, the Fresnel lens I do carry as part of my first aid kit, because if you've got things like a splinter or something like that, I find them quite useful for that purpose. Coarse water filter, Millbank bag. I've done a video recently on purification tablets and showed you how to use one of these. Again, bushcraft, yes. Wilderness survival, yes. Urban stroke Suburban Evac Pack, no. Just have a handful of these compressed towelettes. So if you do need a coarse filter, and again, if you go back to my video on purification tablets, you'll see how easy these are to use. A handful of these in your bag takes up a lot less space, a lot less weight, and these are much cheaper to get a bag of these than to buy one of these. Again, for something that if you're going to have it in your evacuation pack, might sit there for donkey's years and never be used. So why bother with something like this when something like this will cater for exactly the same purpose? Ferro rods, another one. It seems to be fashionable now that people say that you should have a big ferro rod, 5 to 6 inches long, you know, 1/2 inch diameter, something like that. One of these big boys. And again, for the same thing. If you're bushcrafting or you're out in the wilderness for the majority of your time, then one of these does make sense, sort of, from the point of view that it will last longer. If you go back 10, 15 years to people that really started the bushcraft off in the UK, so I'm going to say Ray Mears, he never used anything this big. He had perfect success with the standard size ferro rod. So why do we suddenly need this big boy that is very heavy when we have this? And I would say that for, again, for that Evac Pack for an urban or suburban environment, that potentially even the regular size ferro rod isn't required. They do a little Diddy Scout size one, and let's face it, this can do exactly the same as that and exactly the same as that. They all create sparks and will all ignite tinder if the tinder is ignitable. And as you can see, there are some videos now showing where I test each of these just to show you that they all work. And also, again, going back to the Swiss Army knife, one of the worst parts of a Swiss Army knife, in my humble opinion, other than the corkscrew, which is why I don't carry one that has a corkscrew, is a toothpick. So I quite happily substituted the toothpick for a Firefly ferro rod. And it works. You can use that in conjunction with either the back of the saw, but if you've got a model that hasn't got the saw, you've probably still got the flat bladed screwdriver with the wire stripper in it. And that is the part that you can use with the Firefly. It fits in the notch, and then it literally is a matter of just scraping it, and it will emit sparks and again ignite your tinder. So it works. So that works, and so does that. So again, why do you want to put a big ferro rod in your Evac Pack when you can put, say, a Scout one there, which, to be fair, you can pick up for about £2 on whatever site you want to go to, Amazon or eBay. Or you can put a Firefly, which admittedly are quite expensive, they're about £22, but you get 3 of them, into your Swiss Army knife. And this one I actually EDC, so I've always got a ferro rod in my pocket. And some people will say, well, that's not really necessary, is it? Well, to be fair, it goes in the same place as the toothpick does. Doesn't weigh any more than the toothpick does, or if it does, it's negligible. So it's in my pocket. I forget I'm carrying it, but I've always got it. Or if you're going to go, you know, down the route of having a ferro rod, and ultimately it's your decision what size, in your emergency bag, this is quite a handy redundancy. And no, it will never replace having a lighter or 2 in your emergency packs, because that is, you know, flick your bic and you have a flame. And the next thing, cook pots. There's a Pathfinder bush pot. Lovely bit of kit for bushcraft or for camping, but not a necessity, is it, for an evacuation pack or your survival kit to get you out of the house if you have to evacuate. First you have to decide yourself, are you likely to be cooking? And if you are going to be cooking, what are you cooking? If you've got like Rat Pack meals in your bag or dehydrated meals, and all you need to do is be able to boil water, in which case something like this will suffice. So then there's no need to have that big heavy bush pot. If you're part of a family, which the chances are you are, and this is one bit that does get up my nose sometimes, you know, with all these people doing this bugout bags and this, that, you know, bugout training and bugout bags and get-on bags and all the rest of it. You very rarely hear them mentioning what they've done for their family members or their significant other, their partners, wives, husbands or whatever. And that I do find a little bit frustrating, because it gives or certainly I take the opinion that you're a lone wolf, you're not particularly bothered about them, you're just doing it for yourself. But as I say, that's just me. But anyway, going back to it, so a big pot, not necessarily useful in your evac pack. But if you're in a family group, so for instance, in my case, it's just me and a good lady, we both have one of these in our evac packs, but I do have a larger pot. But it's not stainless steel. You can get an aluminium pot, and I know some of you are going to freak out, and you know, it's like, aluminium, what are you saying? But at the end of the day, it's a pot. Because you might want to, or I might want to, for instance, if it's me and Jack, to be able to boil more water than I would in that one, because I'm going to prepare 2 meals, one for me and one for her, and 2 drinks, perhaps. So then there is a necessity for something bigger, because whilst we both have 2 little ones, there's only the one stove that I carry. And if you're doing it in one of these on the stove, waiting, taking it off, putting another one on, it just takes, you know, it's just a bit of a pain in the bum, and takes a bit longer, and it isn't really what I want to do. So as I say, it's the pair of us, so we want to be able to boil enough water to service both of us with eating and drinking. But again, for an evac pack, you might decide that making a hot drink or hot food is not a necessity. But again, that's your choice. Your evac pack, are you the lone wolf bushcraft type? Or do you agree more with what I'm saying, that you don't need a lot of the heavyweight tools and equipment? You can scale it down for what, you know, for the types of scenarios that you expect, or, you know. And as I say, and the cost saving, you don't want to spend hundreds and hundreds of pounds on equipment that is purely sitting in a bag that may never be, or hopefully never has to be used. That doesn't mean that I'm suggesting that you buy cheap tact that isn't from a reputable manufacturer. It needs to be fit for purpose, but there is always budget options out there, and the knives are a prime example, more a companion. They don't mean stainless steel, they don't mean carbon. For the price, 15 quid, and you have still got a quality item. Okay, it's not full 10, you can't batten the hell out of it, but again, if you know that, and you know that and understand the limitations of some of your equipment, then you're less likely to abuse it, which means you're less likely to break it. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, if you found this video of use, give us one of them. If you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. It costs you absolutely nothing, but means the world to me. It helps my channel get more coverage, which gives me that little boost, and obviously keeps my enthusiasm going for trying to come up with what I think is some unique videos. Forge your own path. You haven't got to follow the herd. In preparedness, whilst there's certain categories that we all need to make sure that we cover, there are various ways of doing it and various budgets. We all have our own ideas of what we're prepping for or what, ultimately could go wrong. Anyway, I'd love to read your comments. Stick them down there. If you think I'm talking out of my hat, be kind, but tell me with constructive criticism and we can all learn from it. Have a great day. See you soon.